admits the tropical depression that was to become Hurricane Andrew is unlikely to cause trouble anywhere. Suddenly, Andrew burst into life.
The winds have built up to 60 miles per hour in the core, and as I mentioned, it's in a place now where it has a chance to strengthen. This could turn into a hurricane within the next 24 hours.
And indeed it did.
Portions of Florida are under a hurricane watch tonight as Andrew, the first hurricane of the season, is churning up the waters of the Atlantic Ocean.
Almost overnight, the dinky little storm turned into a monster.
This is a CBS News special report. Hurricane Andrew, a ferocious storm, is taking aim at Florida at this hour. With winds up to 150 miles per hour, forecasters say Andrew could be the biggest hurricane ever to hit a major metropolitan area in the U.S. It is expected to reach Florida sometime after 6 a.m. tomorrow.
Early the next morning, Andrew slammed into the Miami area with ferocious wind gusts.
Well, this is what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like. Wind gusts 152 to 154 miles an hour. Sustained gusts of 135 miles an hour. The storm surge of ocean water 8 to 13 feet. It's been like this for about 2 hours, a little more. This is, by anybody's standard, a hell of a hurricane. This is the fiercest hurricane to hit the U.S. mainland in decades. It may be, I believe, my own opinion, that it's the fiercest hurricane ever to hit a large, modern, urban community on a coastline.
It's dawn here in Miami, and weather forecasters are saying that the worst is over. But as you can see, it's still blowing very hard, and we're going to continue to have high winds and rain for hours to come. These are the first pictures of damage from Hurricane Andrew. Trees fallen, a satellite dish at one television station crumpled, cars were crushed, and many buildings sustained damage.
Andrew had come up so quickly and moved toward land so swiftly, it had little time to gather water into its spinning winds. As a result, the storm surge was minor. Most of Andrew's damage, unlike most hurricanes, was caused by wind, not water.
A million people have no electricity, no phones, and many of them have no water. Streets have become obstacle courses. Airports were closed. And tonight, National Guard troops are on the streets enforcing a dusk to dawn curfew. And if the image makers like to think of Miami as an American paradise, in a flash, Hurricane Andrew turned Miami into a paradise lost.
Andrew spared areas in Miami, but some nearby towns were totally decimated.
We have nothing, nothing at all. It's totally took everything, destroyed everything. You don't even have a roof in the house, don't have nothing. Everything and everywhere is just gone. We've lost everything and everybody's homeless. I don't know what we're going to do.
Despite the horrendous property damage, only 15 individuals died as a direct result of Andrew. The emergency evacuation procedures had worked. But Hurricane Andrew became the costliest natural disaster in American history. $25 billion in property damage.
There are no words for this destruction, which wiped out not only property, but a way of life.
It's gone. Everything's gone.
Places like Florida City have ceased to exist. If Hurricane Andrew left an undamaged building in this small farming community, it was not visible.
In most places, there were no buildings left at all.
One of the worst hit places, Homestead Air Force Base, south of Miami. It was shattered by Andrew. The base, for all practical purposes, no longer exists. Every building was destroyed or damaged. Miles to the north, in Coconut Grove, a trendy seaside section of Miami, powerful winds lifted boats out of the marina and dumped them onto land. Permanent dry dock for some of these vessels. The eye of the hurricane cut across South-Dade County, where it inflicted some of the heaviest residential and commercial damage.
From the air, you can see how enormous the destruction is. Mass destruction is the label we give it. But get up close and you can see that for every victim, Mass destruction is really individual, singular, personal destruction. We tend to call this rubble. This was somebody's house. Somebody lived here. Not long ago, this was their kitchen. There's a stove here. There's cabinets. Look at this. Look at this. They save pennies. Real people lived here. This isn't rubble. This is a part of somebody's life. But when you look at this, it's hard to imagine that this is Wednesday night, 48 hours ago, this was somebody's house.
Right. That's right. People were living there. People were living there. A family was living there.
Survivors searched, mostly in vain, for something, anything of their former lives.
This was your home?
Yes.
This?
Yes.
And when you looked at this?
Well, there's nothing, you know. What can you do? I was afraid to come near it, and then I thought, I've got to see.
And when you saw it?
I thought there would be nothing. I thought we wouldn't be able to salvage anything. But then I got to digging. I've been crawling underneath there. I've been everywhere, and just looking to see. You never know. And I keep finding things. And thank goodness it was all right.
And how do you figure this? Look at this. Total
disaster.
And let me call you sweetheart on the carousel is still working. When you look at what used to be,
I went crazy. That's all I had. I went out of my mind. I started going, my God, Jesus, well, where do I go from here?
Mary Bennetson is one of those people who lost everything.
It's sad. It was a very pretty complex. We had the pool, we had the tennis court, we had a barbecue area. Look at it now.
Until 2 days ago, Mary lived in this building in Homestead, Florida.
You have to be very careful because there's no banister here. There's no rails.
Oh, jeez. This is where you lived?
This is where I used to live. That's why I can't come and look at it. You can't. All your life you work to have a little something to live comfortable, because I did live comfortable to come to this.
Individually, the stories were tragic. Collectively, the destruction and chaos was so massive that it overwhelmed relief authorities. The story of South Florida's agonizing recovery when the 20th century returns.
Become the biggest problem. Hundreds line up to get a bag of ice. Most have nowhere to buy food, no telephones, and it may take weeks to restore electricity and clean drinking water to everyone.
Stagnant water abounds, breeding ground for disease-bearing mosquitoes and bacteria.
We're going to see a lot of infections, possible food poisonings, and diarrhea and vomiting and further dehydration. The ones particularly at risk are the older people and the children.
One question I wanted to ask you that's a little indelicate. Where do you go to the bathroom?
Becky Byers' bathroom is now her outhouse.
Well, we have a toilet. It's just a matter of it doesn't work. We have a canal about 5 blocks away. Go down, take the bucket, fill it up, come in here, take the lid off the tank, pour the water in here, and flush it, and gravity takes care of it. These people have been living in their garage here.
Who's this?
This is the Bigelows.
Jerry Bigelow and his family live down the street from Becky and John. It may be months before the electricity is back on, but this family is determined to stay.
So this is the shower, right?
I sat in a chair right here and took my shower.
Of all the problems the people in this neighborhood have to endure, the one that we can't show you is the smell. Rotting food and garbage, molding debris, and in the case of this house, diapers, creates a stench that only adds to everyone's misery.
Down then, the dirt turned up, you can smell, but it's mingled with garbage that will bowl you over.
Held was slow in coming. The scope of the damage was so huge that no relief agency, not even the federal government, was prepared to cope with it.
This is the kind of disaster that the Federal Emergency Management Agency plans for. What happened in Florida was just much more massive than anyone could have anticipated.
And as the days passed, criticism grew.
We're very disappointed, very disappointed in our government. We have not a place to live, nowhere to go, and we have had no help from the government.
As the hardest hit victims of Hurricane Andrew struggle to survive, in political circles, a storm of accusation blew up over why more aid isn't getting through.
If we do not get more food and water into the South End in a very short period of time, we are going to have more casualties because we're going to have people who are dehydrated, who are without food, babies that need formula.
We don't have anything left. Like I said, I lost my cars, I lost my house. I'm living in one of my girlfriend's cars. I have a 3-year-old daughter.
Spend money to go out, look for ice, look for this, look for that when we don't have it.
The rules of convenience have been suspended here. No quick runs to the corner for something as simple as ice. Everything takes time, perseverance, and above all, patience.
That patience, though, is at a premium. You have to remember, these are people who have been living the last 4 days, for the most part, without food, without running water, without electricity, and they've been standing in line for an hour in sweltering 90-degree temperatures.
Andrew had hit South Florida in the early hours of Monday morning. It wasn't until Friday, 4 days after the storm, that significant help began to arrive.
At daybreak, the massive military airlift began.
It's a 141 out there.
At its peak, a steady air convoy of military relief jets roared in the skies above a devastated South Florida, with planes landing every 15 to 30 minutes. 7,000 GIs bringing food, water, generators, and unlimited supplies.
Cranes, bulldozers, just anything you can imagine that might be needed to clean up after a hurricane and to keep people alive and function and restore their lives.
A cavalcade of U.S. soldiers from the 82nd Airborne wasted no time transporting the aid.
I think it's nice we get a chance to help some of our people that always going out helping somebody else in another country.
A week after the storm hit, the Army, now 20,000 strong, began hauling in tons of supplies, raising tent cities, setting up kitchens to house and feed the thousands left with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Civilian volunteers worked side by side with the military.
Well, they've been what saved, really the neighborhood, because it hasn't been the federal government. It's been the people coming in here to help us.
We'd drive up, tell them where we're from, and they would just start crying. I mean, just burst out the tears.
But civilian volunteers weren't the only ones drawn to the scene of the devastation. Even as Andrew was still churning through Miami, looters had gone to work. And they were still at it days later.
Leave everything in your hands, just drop it and come out.
The looters over there, you take the stuff out of the building to try to save it, and while you're going back to get something else, they're going over there and picking it up off the ground. See, they're letting you do the work for them. Take a gun and shoot every damn one of them.
I will shoot, and I do have a gun, and I do know how to use it. It's right here. Right here. It's a .357.
And it's loaded?
It's fully loaded.
So you're able to take what Andrew threw at you. But if some person comes in here and tries to steal?
If he threatens me, if he threatens me or my family, I will defend myself.
The authorities invoked a curfew in hope of curbing the thieves, but many residents simply refused to leave what was left of their homes because of the ongoing danger from looters.
Many residents worry about looters, and they have a point. Police are stopping many scavengers, such as this man who admitted picking up aluminum that wasn't his.
You come back and you take property that doesn't belong to you without the owner's permission, you're going to go to jail. It's as simple as that.
With scenes like this, officials are having a difficult time convincing people to leave even dangerous homes.
We got to get these people out of these buildings.
You need to be out of here. This place is not safe for you or the kids, especially the kids.
We're condemning these buildings. You have to get out of them today.
Hundreds of victims of Hurricane Andrew were ordered out of their homes today as officials began condemning some of the 85,000 buildings torn apart in the disaster. It is estimated now that 250,000 are homeless.
We have tents right here in Harris Field, 3 meals a day from the Army. We've got to get you out of here. This is very unsafe. They're going to condemn that along with the building? Please, I'm pleading with you. Please go over to Tent City.
He gonna stay in the tent.
Only a block from that crowd, the Marine Corps tent city remained virtually empty.
I'm going to go back to City Hall and get the Army to come out here.
Yeah,
It's the only thing I can do.
best move.
What are the dangers here? Somebody lives here, what are they up against?
Structural collapse. As you can see, they're just falling down. This one's blown out, ready to fall over.
Long after the storm, the injuries continue. Dozens of people are hurt daily living in the debris.
This piece here that you're standing under, I mean, that could drop any minute.
As the days dragged on, the number of injuries mounted.
Your wife stepped on a nail, man.
She did? Well, she got her shoes on?
I gotta go get a tetanus. It was a rusty roof nail, tin cap on it, and it came right through.
Well, you ain't had, when did you have your last shot?
I don't know.
After the storm, small accidents can create major problems.
We got a lot of congestion.
Where do you go when your doctor's office has been destroyed?
Sonny, I need a tetanus here.
To a makeshift emergency clinic.
I might have to have one of those too. Which foot? The right foot, right under the little toe.
It took 3 hours in 95-degree heat for Becky to find out she must go to a real hospital tomorrow to get her shot.
Doctors and hospitals were stretched to the limit.
Hospitals have a severe problem. They are overcrowded and barely able to cope with a rising number of victims injured by Hurricane Andrew.
We've been on bypass since early last evening, meaning that we're trying not to get any more critically ill patients in here if another hospital can take it. However, all the other hospitals are full as well, so we take any overflow.
10 days after Andrew had crashed through Florida, the problem still seemed insurmountable.
Just go set yourself out in the middle of the woods and burn it down and try and figure out where you're going to do, what you're going to eat, where you're going to get clothes, where you're going to get food. Just what are you going to do? That's all it is. It's just like somebody just burned it all down around you and you're out in the middle of nowhere.
We used to have air conditioning and electricity and clean running water.
What would it take for your life to return to normal?
To rewind and pretend none of this had happened.
A full year after Andrew ravaged South Florida, many communities had still not been rebuilt.
We're the last one to get postal service back here, and it just started in the last 2 weeks.
This is the end of the assistance pipeline. Geographically, it is the southernmost city in the hurricane area, and economically, it's among the poorest in the state. This was a well-kept house before the hurricane came. It was wrecked. The people left. It's happened all over Florida City. Of 6,000 people here when the hurricane hit, half are gone. It's not expected very many will ever return. But however slow the struggle, there is progress. Tiger and Shoddy lounge on the porch of their new mobile home and show off a picture of the old one. Don't you ever worry that one day it's going to look like that again?
If they say a storm is coming, I'm going to run. Then I'll come back.
For the millions of people who moved to Florida before Andrew struck, hurricanes seemed to be storms that happened to other people. It had been years since a super hurricane had hit the state, but Andrew changed all that. Never again would the residents of South Florida think of hurricanes without respect and fear. Some final thoughts when the 20th century returns. Can do to prevent them from occurring. The slightest change in weather half a world away can set in motion the forces that create a hurricane. And even after a storm develops, there are so many variables that our most reliable meteorologists cannot accurately predict their size or strength or direction. One thing we do know for certain, year in and year out, hurricanes will keep roaring in off the Atlantic. And as long as they do, there will always be the danger that one of them will devastate some unlucky coastal community on the U.S. mainland. I'm Mike Wallace, and this is the 20th century.
Now available from A&E Home Video, 20th Century with Mike Wallace. Re-examine some of the significant events of this century and see how they will continue to affect our future. Call 1-800-423-1212. And for $99.95 plus shipping and handling, you can own this collector's set. 11 episodes on 5 video cassettes of 20th Century with Mike Wallace. Call now, 1-800-423-1212.
This is Mike Wallace. Hostages taken, planes hijacked. We thought we were immune. Terrorism against Americans on an all-new 20th century.
Next Wednesday.